I'd like to give a special thanks to my Patreon patron. Fuck. Well, thanks for the patronage and for the video suggestion, I guess. Alright, Code Vein. I've heard of this one. I played a ton of the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, Sekiro. I've also played my fair share of Souls-likes, Remnant from the Ashes, Neo, that sort of thing. Today, we're gonna add another notch under the proverbial belt. Code Vein is sometimes described as anime Dark Souls, but how true is that? Let's find out in this episode of Apollo's Opinions. Code Vein was developed and published by Bandai Namco, which coincidentally is the same company that published the Dark Souls trilogy. The game was released on September 27th, 2019 for Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It features gameplay, of course, inspired by Dark Souls, and animation similar to that you'll find in God Eater 3. So earlier I mentioned Code Vein has gameplay that's inspired by Dark Souls. Now what did I, someone who has honestly put too much time into the series, think of it? It's familiar, but it also treads some new ground, which I can appreciate. You see, in Dark Souls, you pick a class when creating your character, but that doesn't really lock you into a specific playstyle. All it determines is your starting stats and gear. Let's say you chose to start as the Knight, you can swap to being a much more nimble fighter or even a spellcaster. It's just a matter of spending souls on levels that allow you to do your chosen thing more easily, on top of finding the gear that you want to use. Stat distribution is determined by which class or blood code you currently have equipped. The raw numeric value gained by the stat distribution is determined by your level. You also get hit points and stamina with each level. These are the only stat changes you're gonna see reflected on the leveling menu though. The actual amount varies by your currently equipped blood code, and changing blood codes can accordingly change the amount of stamina and health you even have. Every Revenant has a specific blood code that is theirs. However, your character's type is known as the Void type. What this means is that, you can absorb other people's blood codes if they share their blood with yours. Each blood code has a set of abilities, both passive and active, and these abilities are called gifts. Gifts come in a great variety, offensive spells, buffs, debuffs, For my playthrough, I fancied myself, for what Final Fantasy would call it, more of a red battle mage. I focused on having good melee, good armor, while being pretty good at both the light and dark trees of magic, while never really excelling at any one specific thing. I like that the game gives you plenty of gifts and classes to choose from, especially since you can switch both of these on the fly. On top of that, you can master gifts and use them while using other classes, as long as that class lets you meet the minimum stat requirements. Using these abilities costs Ichor, which is your mana. The mechanics surrounding Ichor, they follow a very Kingdom Hearts 1 style, which is not something I thought I would say, but hear me out. You deal melee damage to restore your Ichor, as well as using dedicated, Ichor or mana restoring items. Interacting with save points, or the missile in Code Vein's case, will fully restore it. Other than that, you can, sprint, dodge, use light and heavy attacks, all the while having a limited pool of healing between checkpoints, on top of needing to manage your stamina in every fight. This is the bread and butter of a Souls game and Souls-like. Skill generally will trump stats, though higher levels and upgraded gear tends to help you out a lot. You also have the option of taking a companion with you in your adventures. Each companion has their own abilities and gear and can generally hold their own in a fight. I'm also happy to report that their AI is competent and it will not drag you down with them 99 times out of 100. It's not perfect, but there's gonna be some hiccups. Can't expect it to perform flawlessly every single time. The game does have its fair share of anti-frustration features, like the map board in your home base. It tells you which area you have to go to next and generally what it is you're looking for, in case you forgot. You can find gear of an appropriate level in areas where, in the fire area, you might find like a plus, 7 or 8 pieces of armor or whatever, in case you've been, really unlucky with drops for upgrade materials. The mini-map, it keeps track of where you've been going in the current area, and also marks things like items, doors, ladders, and such for future reference. Your companions will never walk off a ledge or take any environmental tick damage. For as much as they will talk your fucking ear off, they do say plenty of helpful things, such as, pointing out chests or groups of enemies up ahead, in case, you're not the most perceptive person in the world. Side quests have been kind of streamlined, so now it's mostly a matter of going back to an area you previously explored. Then you have to find the people who are marked on your map, and usually are nearby missile checkpoints, accept the quest, and then going to the area that is immediately marked on the map, doing the thing they asked, and returning if need be. If anything, I can definitely say this game is quite user-friendly. Compare Code Vein's side quests to the ones you can find in Dark Souls. Let me give you an example. Siegmeyer of Katarina. You can potentially find him at 7 different spots in the whole game. He has a whole quest line that you can do, but the game never tells you about it. Never once does it ever say anything about Siegmeyer of Katarina. You may never see him, and he's not the only one. There are several other NPCs throughout the whole series with quest lines that are just as obscure. Sure, I know how to do most of these side quests now because I put so much time into the game, but you take a step back and you realize they are pretty fucking obscure. So good on Code Vein for making it a lot more simple. You even get to make a custom character for your playthrough, and you're given a shit ton of options to customize your own avatar. No joke, I spent over half an hour on the character creation. It's seriously so extensive and in-depth. It also comes with a list of pre-made avatars if you don't want to potentially spend a really long time making your perfect anime OC. Though in terms of outright positive things I have to say about Code Vein, that's about it. I generally would say I like the game, however, in the spirit of fairness, I can't say that everything was my cup of tea. When I think of things I don't like about Code Vein, primarily I'm thinking of the level design, the story, and probably the biggest elephant in the room, the anime-isms, for lack of a better word. Also, I have some gripes about just general gameplay, but we'll get there when we get there. Let's go in order. The level designs, for the most part, are good looking. Everything is clearly defined, and it's almost never a struggle to find the correct path forward. But these areas are pretty samey, and they're kind of basic. You go from one ruined city area to another ruined area, but they're only slightly different from each other. One is on fire, another is flooded. One has sand that drains your fucking ichor, so if you're playing a mage, get fucked. Probably the most unique area in the base game is the Frozen Mountain, which coincidentally is my favorite area. It too does have ruins on it, but it's mostly a snow-capped frozen mountain, which is a setting that I like. But then, on the opposite end, we go from like to I fucking hate this area. There's the Cathedral of the Sacred Blood. If you played the game and you've gotten that far, you can probably understand why. This area is probably the reason you're given a minimap that shows which direction you've been going. Everything here is the same color, and navigation can be a confusing mess. Plus, the area is huge. Its general layout is a series of dead ends and routes that intersect and just blend together. There are some roadblocks, ladders that just skip entire floors, solid walls where a doorway should be. It's not the worst or most confusing area I've ever had to navigate, but Jesus Christ, it definitely sticks out. Moving on to the story, I feel like it's somewhat lacking in originality. If you've played a Souls game, or a Souls-like before, stop me if this starts to sound familiar. The world is in ruins. There's a curse/disease ravaging the land, one that leaves people as mindless undead monsters. The overall goal is to find the source of the infection and put an end to it. Or at least make life for everyone more bearable, I guess. I don't know. Hardly the most original story I've ever heard, as far as Souls-likes go, but it's simple, if nothing else. The story has major themes of friendship, compassion, hope, and willing sacrifice for the betterment of others. I like that the overall story is simple to understand. What I'm not such a fan of is the way the story is told. A good portion of it is told through exposition from one character to another. I mean, there's a reason for this to happen. Revenants are stated to have amnesia after becoming revenants, but I can't help but feel it still comes off as somewhat lazy when one character just dumps information on another for nothing else than the sake of the player getting an explanation on something they wouldn't otherwise know. Exposition isn't exactly an easy thing to do right. To do it correctly, I think, take this with a grain of salt, but to do exposition asterisk correctly, I feel like you need to hit a good middle ground of wordiness and useful information. On one hand, there are things the audience needs to be told, otherwise crucial context will be missed and they'll be confused. You can do this in a couple different ways, and a lot of people think that a character just spouting exposition, just explaining things that they already know, just so the audience gets an explanation, is lazy, and I kind of agree with that, but really only when it goes overboard. A huge chunk of the story is also delivered through these sections where you're exploring a character's memories. Some of these moments are genuinely, heartbreaking. Minor spoilers incoming. As part of the story, you encounter these characters. They're called the Successors. Each of them have a deep personal connection to one of your party members. These are all moments of someone saying their final goodbyes to the person in question. They are punctuated with the successor turning to stone, never to reawaken. The tone of these moments can be completely shot in the fucking foot by the fact that you can just restore them after they turn to stone. You're not just pumping the brakes on this shit, you are putting the fucking car in reverse, and it completely kills the mood, and that doesn't sit well with me. Even taking into consideration the context for why you'd want to restore the successors. I like when stories have definitive endings, not just the overall plot, but the story of a character as well. You've probably heard this example before, but, in Silent Hill 2, there's a monster called Pyramid Head. It's a representation of some of the protagonists, James Sunderland. It's a representation of some of his repressed emotions. When he finally confronts those emotions, Pyramid Head no longer serves its purpose, and the story moves on without it. Notice how, out of all the Silent Hill games, Pyramid Head only really works in the second one because it doesn't belong in any other character's story. The role it fills can be done in other stories, Silent Hill or otherwise, but just reusing Pyramid Head because it's iconic to the franchise comes off as just lazy. Like celebrity voice actors, producers just have a celebrity voice a character because they're famous and people are going to see the movie because of it, not because their voice fits the character or they're a good voice actor. Does that make sense? I know that's probably a fucking weird connection, I know. Makes sense in my head. That tangent aside, how the story in Code Vein is told also runs hand in hand with another of my gripes with this game, the aforementioned anime isms. Here's a scene where Yakumo, one of your party members, tells you about something from his past.
Oh, this? It's called onigiri. It's a kind of food that's easy to carry around. Not that there's any point in eating food for a revenant. Although we may thirst for blood, we never grow hungry. Still, I think that makes eating all the more meaningful for us. We fight. We drink blood. We revive. We fight some more. Our lives are pretty much one endless loop. But every time you go around, you almost forget that we were all human once. If I completely lost the memory of my human past, I wouldn't be me anymore. I would just be something in the shape of me. I'd look like a revenant, but on the inside I'd be no different than the lost. What's the point of living like that? I served in the army, back before I became a revenant. We always used to eat these things when we were out on missions. I guess it helps me remember. It was a miserable time, but I made some good friends that I shouldn't let myself forget. This stuff doesn't really taste that great, but eating it always reminds me of those friends. So, I guess you could say it helps me stay me. It's been an important companion in my life.
The English voice acting is done in a style that doesn't really sit too well with me. It's this overly dramatic and overly emphasized enunciation. It's melodramatic. It's, I'm not saying the voice actors did a bad job. What I am saying is the material and the direction they were given just isn't generally my thing, Also, these character designs are kinda something. There's nothing inherently wrong with characters being designed to be attractive as long as they have substance to their character. As long as the characters aren't cookie-cutter tropes and have a believable sense of self and personality, which these characters barely have. This is more of a your mileage may vary type of thing than anything else. The attractive character designs also apply to the male characters, so there's something for everybody, I guess. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. There's a couple DLC packs for the game. They each add new stuff like costumes, weapons, dungeons, even a whole new boss per DLC. I wonder, Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And now, time for some jokes that I didn't know where the fuck else to put. Enjoy! My eyes!
So no head?
Touching those flames will give you more than blisters. Is the entire town on fire?
Well, I don't know what I expected.
How do you feel?
So in conclusion, Code Vein does do a lot right. The gameplay is solid. It takes the Dark Souls formula and puts its own spin on it, which I appreciate. You're given a lot of freedom to experiment with different classes, abilities, weapons, but it does come with its snags. Because of how stats scale and are changed by your current class, some classes feel like just a better version of a previous one, which makes the previous classes useless once you've mastered their gifts and unlocked the newer class. It's like, why would I continue to use the caster class when I could use Isis, which is just caster but way better? In Dark Souls, it's a matter of increasing your stats to the appropriate levels, acquiring the gear you want, and there you go. Whatever build you want to do, you can do it. It's just a matter of time. And honestly, I greatly prefer the way Dark Souls does it, since it allows for a greater depth of freedom and creativity. But I can get behind Code Vein's design choices. It was a bit of a struggle for me to adjust to them, though. The plot is basic, it's simple to understand, but it's told in a way that feels kind of lazy, mostly delivered through exposition from characters' memories. The characters themselves aren't very deep or interesting, and are mostly rooted in anime tropes, which definitely isn't entirely my thing. In the end, is this game just Dark Souls but anime? Kinda, yeah. I would add on top of that, this is basically anime Dark Souls with a good amount of fan service, and if that's your kind of thing, you're probably gonna really enjoy it, and I hope you do. All in all, I'm glad I gave Code Vein a shot, even if it really was only because a patron suggested the game. As far as Souls-likes go, this one isn't very high on my list of favorites. It's mostly good, but only just good, you know? My gripes with the game are only slightly outweighed by my general enjoyment of Souls-likes. I did finish the game after all, but I don't think I'm gonna go back to it anytime soon. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Thanks again, Joey, for suggesting this game and supporting me on Patreon. Link to my Patreon page is in the description. If you'd like to support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, your support is very greatly appreciated, but is by no means required. Regardless, thank you once again for watching, and I will see you all next time.